So I'm Jen. I am the Education and Culinary Specialist, and we're here in my kitchen. Today we were working on roasting some pumpkin and butternut squash and even some cheese pumpkin and giving everything a try and some recipes. And one of the recipes we wanted to try today is gnocchi, which is using some of our vegetables in another main dish. So this is a russet potato, and we're kind of rough mashing it. I'm just using a fork. You can use a potato masher. You can use a ricer. I would not put this in my food processor, and I would not use an electric mixer for this particular recipe. During the course of the preparation, we are also separating an egg. We already have 1.5 cups of flour mixed together in a large mixing bowl. I want my egg yolk. A little bit of white is okay. And then I want about 1/2 cup of, well, I'm using a little bit of butternut squash so that I get a brighter flavor, a brighter color than I would if I used just the pumpkin. All fall vegetables, all from the same growing group, all squash. Pumpkin is really ultimately a squash. This is a winter squash. Butternut squash is a winter squash. Fall being, pumpkin being, for the most part, fall. A little bit softer, will not keep through the winter. So we've roasted the pumpkin, and we're going to puree it. And so anything that is, when you're making this homemade pasta, the flour and the dry ingredients go into one bowl, and then all other ingredients get mixed together in another. There's no water added to this particular pasta recipe because the pumpkin is going to provide all of the moisture that you need. So I'm just mixing together the recipes that are going, the ingredients that are going to add moisture in the recipe. And then we'll mix this into our dry ingredients. And then when you're making this, you really have to go from one step to another. You can't leave the potato for a long time. You can't, you've got to let the pumpkin cool, but the potato could actually be just a little bit warm. You don't want to let it cool completely. And you've got a nice mixture that you can now put into your dry ingredients. So I'm hoping. There's 1.5 cups of flour. There's about a teaspoon of salt. And there's 1/2 cup of potato and 1/2 cup of pumpkin. And we've just added a couple extra tablespoons. Okay, so then you really have to do this with your hands because you have to be able to see how sticky it is, or if it's coming together, and it is very easily. Okay, and then this is a nice texture. You want to make this into sort of a little loaf. Okay, and then you want to cut. And then it's ultimately a rolling into a rope. So a little bit of flour on your board, and then just the dough underneath your hand. And you want to pull it back together if it does that. Not too much flour. You don't want to dry anything out. And you don't want a lot of flour to be falling into your boiling water either. Okay, so there are a couple of different ways to do this. You're going to cut pieces. And then most of the time you see gnocchi with like a stripe. And so kind of just put your fork. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it just gives it the effect. They should be as uniform as possible, but not to worry. We could put these in toward the end. And then these will get dropped into boiling water, one or two, one at a time, a few at a time, but you don't want to stop the boiling. And then they will be lifted out of the water after they're on the top cooking for a bit, and they will be lifted out with a slotted spoon. They won't just completely be drained. So they have to come to the top of the water, they have to cook, and then they will be lifted out with a slotted spoon, and then they'll go into the sauce. If you're going to keep these, you can put them in the refrigerator for an hour or so until your guests arrive and want to boil water. But you can also freeze these. So you would freeze them on this tray, separated as they are. And then when they're frozen, a few hours from now, then you can put them in the into plastic bags. And of course they won't, you can go in and take a handful or a cup or so for whatever purpose at another time. Okay, we're just and this was always one of the favorites growing up. Gnocchi was a big favorite. It's when you're making it for a full family, it is an afternoon job, but you can give everybody a little something to do and have everyone learn how to make them. They're a crowd pleaser for sure. And with this recipe, you could do, we're going to do like a sage butter, maybe with a little bit of cream, add a little bit of thyme, but you could do it like fettuccine, like an Alfredo sauce. You could do it with some primavera, some vegetables, broccoli or zucchini, or some cut up vegetables in a sauce, a creamy sauce or a broth, and served it that way. And sometimes they're actually served in a soup. But my favorite would be in this season to do the sage and the sage butter, or to do an herb butter with them. Letting this dough sit too long, you'll find that it gets sticky. So you do want to work with it fairly quickly. You don't want to just make the dough and let it sit. Be ready to actually form your pasta, your gnocchi, when it's ready. When it's ready. This is getting a little bit sticky. So this is a great way to eat in season. Everything here is orange. Pumpkins start out in the field green, and then in the summer they absorb all that sunlight, so beta carotene and vitamin A. It's what you need at this time of the year, and we're getting into the cold. We're going to get into the colder weather. The winter squash will be available to you. It's a good thing. These are great to have as side dishes. There's always just the squashes, or making it into something else, and not only main dishes but also dessert. I hope we've been an inspiration today to you to come to try some recipes, and when you figure out what ingredients you need, you'll come out and visit us at the farm so that we can help you choose some of the fall squashes, and of course all of our other vegetables that you might need for your recipe.